Okay, so today we're here to talk about the Planning Outreach Policy Update. And so we're going to go into this, but we're going to set the stage here with some context and background. But what is the purpose of the Planning Outreach Policy? One, it's to share information and community members on development proposals, which provide the applicants areas for improvement, as well as informs the city decision makers. And we're going to break that down in a little bit, but I do want to distinguish what we're talking about here. So the world of planning, city planning, is really about the city's decision making on how private land term. And so planning applications are development applications on private property where an individual, a developer, applicant is proposing to do something with that property. And so what we're really talking about is outreach related to that context. It's not related to all city outreach. So I just wanted to kind of focus our lens on our specific topic. So the city does have a current policy, and this policy was adopted in 2017. That's actually 5 years ago. And I think 5 years ago doesn't feel like a long time ago, but we all know how much the world has changed in those 5 years. And so certainly revisiting what this policy is about makes a lot of so our general awareness of what we could be doing better. So if we want to take a look at the current policy, it's on our is that it divides projects and how the city approaches outreach based on really the size of the project. So there are different methods of how the city currently informs individuals about participating in the development process. One, when an application is submitted, there will be an on-site post on the project site itself. And what you'll see with this table is what our current policy does, is it says the size of that posting, right? Whether it's a small size or a bigger size or a larger size is dependent on the size of the project. So on the right-hand side of this slide, you will see the definitions of what a project size is. So small is when a public hearing is required for a single family house or a duplex. Standard is when you've got 3 to 49 residential units, or an application that includes up to 30,000 square feet of commercial development or up to 50,000 square feet of office or industrial development. And a large project is when you have more than 49 units, you have greater than feet of office, greater than 50,000 square feet. I'm sorry, that should say commercial, 50,000 square feet of office and industrial. And then there is a caveat for something called significant interest. And really what that is when the project is more than just its size. It could be of interest to the entire city. So that's where the caveat of if it is a significant interest project. You'll notice that the requirements for large and significant interest are the same. It's just that it could mean that a standard project, because it has a citywide implication, could mean that it needs to do more. And once again, this is all the city's current policy, which was adopted in 2017. So also there's information posted on the city's website. Mailing is made available based on, once again, is it a small, standard, large, or significant interest? Whether commuting is needed or not. Some of these other things are more specific. Is there a calendar posting included on the city's website? Of course, when we're always going to post that on city's website, emails through something called e-notify, and I'll just take to explain what that is. So if you go to the city's website and you're interested in signing up for various things, you can decide that you get communications whenever anything is applicable. That could be a community meeting or a public hearing on those items. And for instance, we have a zoning code update that's underway right now, and we have a lot of people who signed up for any time there's something about the zoning code that's going to, be a community meeting or a public hearing. So all those individuals will get information. They don't have to call us individually. They can just go on and express their interest. And social media. So we will post this information out on social media as well. So the next page. So there's a little bit more specifics. If it's a public hearing, right? We're going to mail the notices. We're going to put it on the city's website. And we're going to email that to all those interested parties. We're going to push it out on social media. And we may also put that out on a newspaper notice. I apologize, there might be some background noise. My family members are coming home today, so right now. So a little bit about how do we conduct outreach? So, at the beginning, I started out with what's the purpose, right? So just want to engage a little bit on that purpose, right? So at a very high level, it's about sharing information, right? Is what's happening next door to me? What's happening a block away from me? It's making sure that people are well informed. Hold on 1 second while I let my family know to be more quiet. Hold on. Thank you. Sorry about that. So it's sharing information with everyone who might be interested in knowing. And once again, it's in the various different outlets or magnitudes based on the size of the project in our current context, right? It's to get input, right? And what do we do with that input, right? We want to improve projects. We want to resolve issues. We want to know what those issues are, because sometimes it's not clear to staff just by looking at plans what those issues could be, and those issues come from the community. And so by bringing those issues up, we can resolve them. Well, at least that's that, right? We want to elevate community concerns with decision makers. So we don't always have an ability to solve every issue that's brought up. And there maybe isn't necessarily willingness either on the part of applicants to address something, right? So when we go in front of our decision makers, whether it's the Planning Commission, Historic Landmarks, our City Council, it's to be able to compile what we've heard from the community and share that with them. And the thing that I love the most is when we can actually resolve issues and we can show how the community input has actually evolved the project. And we can actually show slides of a before and after, for instance. But once again, it's about elevating those concerns to decision makers so that, even if you don't come to the public hearing, your ideas are brought forward to those decision makers when ideas are coming up and projects are coming up for consideration. Are there other thoughts for why people think we conduct outreach? Just opening it up to the group.
Well, if there's a project that's geographically close to a person who's communicating with this outreach committee, they may have some specific concerns about possible impact that other people who aren't close to that geographic area have no idea about. So you get a better view from the ground.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's perspective. Absolutely. Looking at a set of plans is not the same as sitting in your unit, in your house and saying, whoa, this is the issues that I see might be happening as a result of what's being proposed. Definitely perspective. Anyone else and other thoughts on outreach, on why we conduct it? And we're gonna kind of move past that to some of these more concrete stuff, but just big picture here. Okay. So, this, I wish I could say that I created these images. I didn't. I've seen this a number of times in the last couple of years. And it's a really good illustration of kind of some of what we've learned about how we approach participation in the community. And what we've learned is that equal methods don't necessarily mean equitable outcomes. And what I mean by that is like let's look at this first little box here, right? And context in a very general way. There are individuals who have access to resources. And you look at this, and here's the little boy, he's not even doing anything, and the apple's just falling from the tree and he's catching it, right? And then here's this other boy, and the tree's slanted here, and more of the apples are on the other kid's side, and he doesn't know how he's going to get an apple, right? So our systems and the world is set up to have these inequities built in. And what we have been doing is the second box, right? How do we treat everyone the same? Just make sure everyone gets the same material, the same information. And what we know is that going about things for everyone in the same exact manner still isn't quite cutting it, right? Those people who haven't been able to participate still are not necessarily able to participate. Just because you've made the ladder a little taller doesn't mean that you've really been able to help them overcome whatever those barriers are and participate. And really, where we kind of want to get to in the general scheme of things is, how do we get people to participate? What are those barriers that are keeping them from participating? And we might have to do some things differently for different people because there are different barriers for different individuals. So this is sort of that third box here, right? And this is where I think there are opportunities for our policy to consider those barriers that we've had in the past in order to get more people to the table that haven't been able to participate in the past. And I would say this last box is really illustrative of, this is a very systematic issue. I'm not expecting the outreach policy to translate into, tremendous social equity. That's not it. It's maybe an ultimate goal, but there's a path and there's a vision for how we can get more people to participate. So with that, I want to share a little bit about some known barriers, right, for equitable participation. And this is where information is really useful. We did have a census that was conducted in 2020. And what that census told us was a lot of interesting demographic information about our city. And so we do know that we have residents in our city who have limited language access to English. And this is especially true of people who speak Chinese, Korean, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And I do want you to understand that the census has some challenges with the information and how it presents it. First of all, just the definition of what the census uses for limited language is that there is no individual over the age of 14 in a household who has English speaker. So that's just what the definition of what a limited English speaking household is. Now, Chinese, Korean, Spanish, and Vietnamese, they're actually languages that are explicitly called out in the census, as well as other languages. But there are many languages that are not uniquely identified. They're actually joined up with other languages. And so those languages that don't have their own unique identity, for instance, my family, we're from India, and we speak a language called Malayalam, right? I know there isn't a substantial population of Malayalam speakers in Santa Clara, but if there was, where Malayalam is bunched up is in this category called Indo-European languages. So what I'm telling you is that the census gives us information on this topic, but it's not complete information. There are probably other categories of individuals. It's hard to get at that information. Catherine, I see your hand raised. Would you like to speak, Catherine? Okay. Feel free, Catherine, if you would like to speak, to do so. Okay, we also know some known barriers are the methods. So one, online participation has been convenient for a lot of people. In fact, during the pandemic, it's been really great because we will have a meeting on one side of town and people from another side of town join just because they can. They don't have to drive to the other side of town to join. And, I love it too. Like, I could be chopping up carrots while at the same time listening to stuff that I'm interested in, but I don't have to leave my childcare responsibilities, for instance. So in many ways, online meetings have been really helpful, but there's still that digital divide. Some of our older residents have a harder time dealing with the platform, as well as not everyone has access to really fabulous internet access. So just an acknowledgement that, online meetings have a purpose too, but maybe not universal. So once again, the availability, right? We often do evening meetings, and that's not convenient for people who work the swing shift or night shifts or people who have childcare responsibilities. And then also for many people, it's like opportunity cost, right? So you don't have time to participate. You're working 2 jobs, whatever it may be, like that's loss of income, right? To come and participate. So that's also a part of some known barriers. And this is for, more inclusive participation. Do you guys have some other thoughts on that topic? We have some other things to talk about, but specifically about known barriers for access. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is the slide that is kind of a bummer and not, but we do have some contemporary challenges. So the state of California has created new laws to streamline housing development. And that ultimate goal is a great goal, right? We have a housing crisis. We want to build more housing, and hold communities accountable for that, right? So the intent behind that is to streamline housing development. But a part of those laws have definitely made it so that really you cannot ask housing projects for what I would term discretionary changes. And what discretionary is when something isn't very prescribed in a very explicit way in a city regulation. For housing, you cannot require someone to make a change. And that is different than how things have been with all development, but specifically with housing. I'll take a very simplistic example. There could be a housing development that's being proposed, and it's being proposed in a certain shade of color. And the community says, actually, that shade is really off-putting to us. We would like a different shade of color. Seems really simple, but that is discretionary. unless the city explicitly called out for that parcel what the color of that housing project should be, then we cannot require that change. Now, a lot of times a developer will listen to something like that, like no sweat, that's, changing a color of paint. So there's still value in information and getting voluntary participation. But the challenge is that meetings and having meetings sets these expectations that things can change or will change or have to change. And so that might be more about communication to the community to set expectations. But I do want to share that definitely with housing, and this has only gotten more and more and more true, which every passing year, the state has more stringent, I should say, the word isn't stringent. The word is local abilities to change projects have decreased. And so that is a challenge when you're engaging with the community and they have things they want to see changed, that there are limitations on that. Another thing is, there's a Housing Accountability Act where many of these laws live, and they do specify you can only have a number of meetings. And actually having more meetings could be interpreted as based on that law. So that I just, want to be completely candid that this is a challenge to want to engage our community, but also do that in the context of the state laws. And then the other challenge is really around how we do this meeting. If these meetings are hybrid, are they in person, or are they virtual? So each type of meeting has its benefits. So a virtual meeting is really good when you're just sharing information, right? Getting specific information back. When you do an in-person meeting, it's really good for collaborating, getting people's hands in something and getting them involved in many aspects of a project. And you would think that hybrid would be like marrying those two things together. And I don't know if any of you have participated in hybrid meetings, but that's actually not necessarily the case at all. And that's because it comes with sort of technology and staffing challenges around that technology. I am hopeful that, although I'm not seeing a lot of opportunities for really successful hybrid meetings today, that technology is evolving really quickly and we might get there. But I just wanted to share that is a contemporary challenge of like, how do you host this meeting? And each way of doing it doesn't seem perfect. Whereas before, we only had one way to do it, was in person. And I think if we only offered in-person meetings, people would be pretty disappointed because we do increase participation by getting virtual meetings. Does anyone have questions or comments on this, like, context of these contemporary challenges? Yeah, Donna?
Sure. Using this meeting that you posted this time as an example, how many attendees did you get on the in-person meeting? Because I believe you had one
Yes.
about a week ago.
Correct. We had fewer people participate in person. We don't have a hefty participation virtually right now. It's hard for me to, when I'm sharing a screen on the PowerPoint, but I think we only had like 4 or 5 people in person.
And I see right now, and I may not have total access, but the event planner in me is kicking in. I see about 15 participants versus what you had.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see right now. I'm gonna maybe stop sharing my screen if there really are that many.
Well, I can be your eyes, but
Great,
yeah,
thank you.
that's what I see. No, I just wanted to say that as a positive to, because we can use this meeting as your example going, going forward.
Yeah, thank you, Donna.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, and Donna, I know you were at that downtown charrette, right? Or open house, if you will. And it's a different kind of animal, our long range plans, than really what this is capturing.
True.
Right? That I don't want to that, you know, we're going to do hybrid for all that kind of stuff, right? It's not because but you know, we got 60 people to come in person, and that was great. And definitely good for the community. And that particular precise plan has a lot of impacts. But no, thank you, Donna, for pointing that out about this.
And that had, just to add insight, because I did a lot to help, and I know Mary Grizzle did as well, as our chief person in charge. We pushed it out a lot on our platforms,
Right.
as public platforms, so that it increased the visibility. You know, hopefully everyone else did that too. But
yeah, thank you, Donna, for doing that. And you know, I do have to say, people have, like, in our last meeting, our in-person meeting, we had a little bit of a conversation about like what really is the most successful method of reaching people. And it was, you know, word of mouth, right? And social media helps with word of mouth because your friends can share something on social media and it also automatically builds credibility with you without having them to pick up the phone or send you a text. But yeah, just word of mouth is really what I think drives people to come to things more than anything. But it's getting into those people who be, right, those influencers, if you will, whether it's through social media or they're contacting their friends. It's still like reaching them and getting their attention.
I agree with that 100%. It's word by mouth and follow-up engagement. I posted a comment on the city Facebook announcement for this meeting tonight, and I saw one of my Twitter followers actually added a comment saying one of the links didn't work, and so I gave the proper link. But yeah, no, that's just showing positive use. It's not just posting the link, it's following up after.
Yeah, no, thank you.
That you of course don't always have that time, or your marketing team doesn't have that engaging time. That, and I'll mute myself.
Yeah, no, this is
But
great.
yeah, no, it's the follow-up now, especially after the pandemic. I have seen less social interaction because we're all tired.
Yeah,
We're
I
all
hear you.
tired of virtual, but it's the best way to connect. And you know, it's like you have to just basically direct mail people.
Oh no, I hope not.
uh,
Rocio, you have your hand up.
Hi, Rena. I just wanted to really commend you on spreading the word, you know, weeks ahead for today's event. I think a lot of the time for some of the outreach events from various cities, you know, we might hear, or our volunteers might hear about them a day or two before. And I think that that is not really the best approach to driving attendance. I think for us, we try to do it at least a month ahead of time to really give people reminders, give them, you know, multiple opportunities to get the information they need and various steps. So definitely, you know, love that for today's meeting, and hope to see that in future outreach efforts. And then I know that we've done a couple of approaches to hybrid events, and interestingly enough, it's always more difficult to get people to come in person, even when we offer food and things like that. We're gonna give it another go next week with our volunteer committee meeting. But yeah, definitely still trying different hybrid approaches out.
Great, no, thank you. Yeah, I feel like offering food is, when you have things in person, kind of like that has to be done now. Just, you know, an added incentive for someone to come in person. Catherine, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I agree with everything you just said, me and Rocio. Hi. And a lot of people think I'm just really unusual and brave for going to public meetings and stuff. I think there's a lot of barriers, not necessarily with the outreach, but of people feeling like they don't want to speak in public, or that they don't know how to say what they want to say, or they don't want to be in a crowd of NIMBYs who are screaming terrible things about people like them. And that last, I think, and so one thing I'm concerned about is that we don't get people showing up at public meetings who support projects, or who say, well, this would be a good project. I hope they can, tweak this one thing, like have a public art display outside instead of a gallery in the common room in the building. But overall, I think it should happen. But you get just hordes and hordes of these well-organized people who are afraid of the project. I don't really know how to overcome people's reluctance to show up. I'm like, yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah, and I do really think that some organizations, like, we have them come regularly to Santa Clara Council, and they organize within their members or get communications out. That's kind of how a lot of that information gets out to people who may not live next door, but are interested in seeing something move forward. And I really appreciate their role. And I've just been thinking about, the city and its official abilities to do that, right? Like and the one thing I have to say that's good about social media is you get everyone. Like, as long as someone, well, I'll talk a little bit as well, but if you've expressed an interest in the city of Santa Clara, right, and you decide to go on their Facebook page, you will get all the content. But not everyone takes that effort to want to be following the city of Santa Clara, right? So they're not going to get that content.
A lot of people aren't even on Facebook.
Yeah, no, fewer and fewer people actually. That's the trend.
Well, I'm trying to avoid Facebook, frankly, because it's just so demoralizing that no matter what content I post, nobody sees it. I mean, I could post all day about, public meetings or whatever, or sales in my business, or events Catalyze and Shack are running, but nobody sees it, nobody interacts with it.
Allison, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I want to say I found it very effective to sign on through the website for the things I'm interested in, and I get daily postings of what meetings are happening in my interest areas. So I think you're doing a great job there.
Yeah.
And then I had a specific question on this slide, and another is, how many more slides do you want to cover? And maybe we've kind of broken into a discussion here.
Yeah.
And
I'm
wondering
happy.
if there's more to go.
Yes,
But
there is.
my specific question on this slide is, does the number of meetings allotted to make a decision on a project have to do with the size of the project, or is the number of meetings fixed, just a fixed number no matter what?
Yeah, it is a fixed number. It's not related to the size. And
Okay.
And
what is that number?
And I believe it's 5.
Okay.
And that includes
Thanks.
by the time you go to hearing, right? And recognizing that the decision-making body may want more than one hearing if absolutely necessary to make a decision on something, So that's and the state laws have been changing very quickly every year. So today, literally December of 2022, that may not apply to every housing project, but I actually have to see if in January 1st of 2023 it does. So that's how quickly the laws around housing have been evolving. But yeah, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So we've, we hear when people have thoughts about our outreach, and we have, and I'm putting them into big categories, right? But also obviously really interested in what you guys have found haven't been working and what needs improvement. So currently, this is not in our policy, because you will have noticed I didn't mention this, because it actually comes out of our zoning code. And our zoning code is from 1969. The city is actually working right now and is incredibly close to finally being done with our zoning code update. But in our code, it actually stipulates that you should post in 3 different geographic areas within 300 feet of a project site, the hearing notice. And we have heard numerous times, all the time, I wouldn't say once a week, but like really frequently, that, you know, people really don't find this helpful. The notices usually they see well after the hearing date is done. They think it's litter, it's unsightly, doesn't really get to who we're trying to get to. Like the same people who are seeing those postings that are ran, and it's for a public hearing notice, it'll be like on a utility pole, for instance. So I just wanted you to know that that actually can't change as part of this policy, something that we hear a lot about, but it's in our city's zoning code. Also heard about community meetings, and I'm not saying that won't change, it's just not part of the policy to change. The policy itself won't change it, changing the zoning code would. We've also heard that when we have community meetings, projects are already too baked in to change. So, you know, someone will say, oh, I can't do that because I've already designed the project this way, so we can't change where the entryway is or the exit way, or, you know, and so I've definitely heard that, where people feel that by the time they're hearing about a project, they don't really feel like they can do anything to make it, you know, address some of the concerns that they have. We've also heard, you know, the size of the project isn't necessarily what dictates whether or not it leads to controversy. It could be a small project and it has a lot of relevance to the community versus, you know, a larger project. Although size is I have to say, kind of a nice objective standard to start out with. Like, I'm just giving you my feedback. It's really hard to gauge things otherwise, in an objective way and transparent way. Also, the community has been critical about when they give feedback, like what happens to it. It sort of goes into this black box, long time passes, and then all of a sudden you're at hearing and I don't know what you've done with my feedback. So that's definitely feedback we've heard. And then this is not really what we've heard. This is me sort of throwing some ideas out, which is, oh, my son just gave me a piece of chocolate, sorry. Is, you know, recognizing that the cities, communities are having, I should say, less abilities to change things around housing. Not necessarily everything, right, but specifically housing. When the city goes through a general plan amendment, that's when someone's proposing to change the general plan. And without sounding too wonky, the general plan is different than the zoning. The general plan is what the future redevelopment of a site could be. And the zoning is what the current standards are. If you wanted to do anything today, change the use, the zoning is what would dictate that. When you have a general plan amendment, someone says, hey, I don't like what they've envisioned for my site and its future redevelopment. I want to go from, let's just take office to residential or residential to office. That actually, and a lot of times it's more nuanced than that. It could be a type of residential that is what is on the general plan, but they want to do a different type of residential, so they need to do a general plan amendment. That is actually a discretionary action by the city. And that might be an opportunity for this to ask for a bit more than obviously some of these other projects where we've lost the ability to have discretion. So really focusing on this category of general plan amendments and Could there be more engagement with it? Could we ask for some additional amenities or benefits sort of as part of our process that we don't do right now? So that's just like another thought. Are there other thoughts people have about what they haven't seen work or where they think things could be better? Allison?
It may not be appropriate for me to give input because this is my first time attending a Santa Clara planning meeting. But I do wonder.
Wonderful. That's great. I'm glad.
Okay. I do wonder, is there any part of an overview of plans that explains the financial side? What part of a plan or development is, if any, is funded by the city or the state, and what is completely funded by the commercial venture building the plan? Does that ever come into play in how decisions get made and what people are told as general information on a project?
Yeah, so that's good. That actually gets into, I apologize, my dog is yelping right now. So we do look at the financial implications of a project as a city. And when it's an individual development, it's usually at a pretty high level. When we're proposing like a specific plan or an area plan, a lot more analysis that, and that analysis could involve like, hey, there's a change in property values because there's going to be redevelopment here. Hey, they're proposing commercial, so there's going to be sales tax here. It also looks at, you know, we're going to have more residents here, so those residents are going to need services. So although we might be getting more property taxes, we will also be needing more services to support them. So we're kind of at a balance, right? Neutral, or is it negative, or is it positive? So that kind of general analysis, more in-depth analysis does happen with the plans that we work on. And that often will feed into what the land use makeup could be. Like, can we afford to have all office development here? Can we afford to have all residential development here? And that's also, all that information becomes available. And the way that development works is it pays its own way. So the city is not paying for infrastructure for development. Development is paying for the infrastructure that it needs to provide services for what it's building. So, say as a whole, development pays and is responsible for its own demand, if you will. But there are other things that the city exacts from development in order to take care of infrastructure needs that a development couldn't pay for in and of itself. And an example of this is our parks, right? Like, by adding more residents in our community, we're going to need more park facilities. We can't necessarily individual project, the swim center, or to build, you know, a basketball, I don't know.
Okay, this is exactly what I was wondering about.
So that those
specifically, when do we get that information?
Right. So that information, there's definitely a section in every report about fiscal impact. We don't usually, because it's how do I say, it's a straight calculation. So we do have a city ordinance that talks about what every development has to contribute from a parkland standpoint. But for each development, we don't usually talk about that. Like, oh, this development is going to pay this much in fees for the development of parkland. But that could be good feedback if you think that's useful for people. That's something that generally isn't talked about. I do have to say that usually applicants and developers will voluntarily share that information because they want you to know, like, hey, I'm paying all this money and you're going to get something for it, community. But that's not typically what is shared, like how much they're going to contribute to that parkland contribution. Similarly, affordable housing. We are usually more explicit about how many affordable housing units that particular like housing project has to build. In Santa Clara, I'm really happy. We have something called a commercial linkage fee. So all our office development, all our industrial development per a square foot is actually contributing to the construction of affordable housing. And what happens is they pay a fee, it goes into a city pot. The pot will pay and offer affordable housing developers money to subsidize their affordable housing projects. And so if you
Thank
find
you,
that,
Rena.
if you
Yeah,
find that
thank you.
information really helpful, like that's good to know. We don't usually go into that level of depth of all like the ways that projects are contributing or specifically what they're doing. We do a little bit more for affordable housing. Anyone else have other thoughts on what we can do from an improvement standpoint? Okay, so, oh, yes. Hey, Mark, is that you?
Yes, yeah, just quickly, I think you called out the things that need improvement, the posting of notices. I know the city knows every address in the city, and it certainly seems that there's more practical ways than posting on a telephone pole
Right.
that a project is coming up. And I also particularly just wanted to second the feedback that, or that the thought that it's unclear what happens to feedback. You never really, it's often difficult to find out what's happening with the project, what's going on. Are we going to have another meeting? Was my feedback helpful? What's the next step? So that's a whole area that needs improvement too. I think you're absolutely right. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you for emphasizing that. Okay, so the story isn't over tonight. And really, like, if you have other thoughts, please share them. This is an opportunity to share them. I don't really have other slides. I have a conclusionary slide on next steps. But taking this feedback and then constructing it into updates to our policy. And also talking, with our city team on some of these ideas. And I'll throw an idea out. I'm actually kind of throwing it out to get a feeling. And I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second because I want to see if other people joined us that I didn't. Oh, yeah. So I see a couple people who joined. I'm going to offer those people who joined, I think a couple of minutes after we started, the opportunity if they wanted to join on as a panelist. So that's how you're seeing the names if you're looking at a computer screen. And that way you can come over. You do have to accept that button though. Hi, Mary. Okay, so just back at, so let me throw an idea out for folks. I am really just trying to test the waters here on how people feel about something like this. So we did talk about trying to get to people who are hard to reach. I did talk about languages and having knowledge now that there are certain languages that of people that, are a larger population in our community, and maybe we should try to reach them in a better way than just sending them a hearing notice in English. And, with social media, you can buy ads, right, in other languages to target people who speak those languages. So just interested in what people think about that. Like, and when I say ads, the city would buy an ad to whatever Spanish speaking outlet to post the community meeting notice in Spanish, right? Or we do that in Korean, or we do that in Vietnamese, or we do that in China. But I actually wondering if that rubs people the wrong way, or if it feels like it's a clever idea. Just kind of curious about what people think about an approach like that to get at specifically languages.
Where would you be posting the language translated material?
Yeah, I think we'd have to do some research on that. Like, you know, what are some neutral Spanish speaking language? It could be like the news outlet, you know, whatever the name is escaping me now, but there could be a Spanish speaking news outlet, and we could buy an ad to post our public hearing notice in Spanish, for instance.
That sounds great to me. But Rena, I wonder if you could highlight gathering places in the area where the project is going to happen, like
Yeah.
neighborhoods around the project, maybe restaurants, libraries, cafes, etc., where they might be within a mile or less of the project, and somehow spread the word in those locations.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because actually it's kind of scary, right? But I think social media companies know a lot more about us, like where we live. For
I would
instance,
offer,
and they can, it could be a geographic thing.
I
I'm
would
sorry, did someone
offer,
say that's awful? Oh,
no,
offer.
no, no,
Okay.
offer, sorry, no.
Oh, yeah. No, it's okay. Hi, Donna.
Just offer up one more recommendation to that is contact the community leaders of
Mhm.
the Hispanic and Chinese and Asian, because they have that power to contact their people in a simpler way, not easier,
Mhm.
simpler way. So yeah, and there's several in our city, in San Jose area, Silicon Valley, that I used to follow, but just contact those leaders and see if they will support that to get the news out to what is needed.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's a great.
church and faith leaders could be another
Mhm,
possibility.
mhm.
Yes,
And senior centers.
yes,
Yes. Yeah.
and middle-aged centers. There's
Yeah.
a difference.
I have a question for you all. I am incredibly aware of the Old Quad Residents Association in Okra. They do a lot there with other residents associations, and would love to piggyback on, like, I think there is one called, it's not SOFA, it's like South of Forest Residents Association. I did go to their website, but I don't know if there's people who are on this call who could like say, hey, there's this neighborhood association to help us as a team, like trying
Rena, I think that's a good idea, and
to get communications to those neighborhood associations. That would be really helpful. Anyone, so Mark, so I'm gonna, Rocio. So did you want to say something? Because I think you had your hand up and I didn't.
Yes, I did. I mean, this is a few steps back. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
I did want to just talk about, the signage and postage and outreach related to sites. And I think, if we're talking about new approaches, I think the 300 feet, outreach window is relatively low. And I completely think that the Spanish language outreach is a great idea, particularly in media that's accessible to them. And I want to recommend, most of the Latino markets
Rocio,
and
you're
stores
breaking up for me.
locally.
I heard a lot of what you said. Could you repeat that just because you were breaking up?
Yeah, the last part I was going to say is that a lot of Latino markets actually carry newsletters and Spanish language newspapers that are available for free. So I would definitely want to check what the circulation is in San Jose, in Santa Clara, to see if that outreach would be helpful to you all.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion for sure. Mark, you have your hand up.
Rena, yes, I do think there are neighborhood associations. I think you mentioned the one off of near Forest.
Yeah.
There's one partly in San Jose too, which is the New Hall Neighborhood Association.
So that does include Santa Clara residents, New
I
Hall?
think it does have a few Santa Clara residents in it, but I also think that the city could do some outreach to organizations that ought to be on the notification list regularly. For example, when we were talking about the station area the transit area task force that's coming up, the suggestion came up to include someone from the SES hall. So organizations like that.
Mark, I'm sorry, you broke up for me where I heard a lot of it, but could you just repeat again what you said about the Santa Clara station?
Yeah, that one of the suggestions, for example, that came up with the council was to contact the SES hall and their Portuguese members. It's a Portuguese community association. And so I'm sure I know there are a number of, there's a Muslim community organization. Those organizations ought to be receiving directly planning notices so that they can inform their members. I think that would be a valuable outreach.
Yeah, don't we have a Muslim church on Homestead? Or is that still open? It may be closed.
I don't know if it's on Homestead, but we do have one in North Santa Clara.
Why can't we have, can you hear me?
Yes.
Why can't we have on channel 15 the a blurb in Spanish and then go to Portuguese or Spanish or whatever language that you want to highlight, and have that posted so that it's, say if you're announcing a meeting for next week, you could have it a week on there, just in their language. And I think once people start noticing that it's there, they would be more interested. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's a great outlet. It's free to the city, right? Channel
Exactly.
15.
And I think that you could probably get more participation. Like I personally would go to the IES and say, you've got to turn on channel 15 periodically to see what's going on with the city. And they would be able to pick up a lot of people, a lot of the Portuguese people, I'm Portuguese, and a lot of the Portuguese don't speak English. Some do, but a lot of them don't. And this would be a way for them to get involved if they knew that there was a place that they could go to where other Portuguese people might attend, either via Zoom or via whatever, or live. I think that they would participate in, say, a survey or if it was in their own language. And if you had it posted on channel 15.
Thank you, Mary.
There's also the Hispanic show on Sunday mornings. I forget the name of it. It's a half-hour long Sunday morning at like 10:30. Somebody may know. It's like I'm forgetting. It's like, but see if he advertises a lot of things in the community for the
Rena, do you have somebody within the city that does outreach?
Yes. Well, let me put it this way. Outreach is a specific term, right? We have professionals in communications who help us on the different mediums of communication that are there. Their job, though, isn't about, they have plenty to do, trust me. But their job isn't about like helping planning, right? We will use the city's outlets for communicating information and getting it to individuals, but we don't have someone just like trying to like someone at the reason why I'm saying it this way is at our last meeting in person, someone said, oh, maybe the city should have like an outreach person who like will knock on people's doors and get people to participate. We don't have like an outreach coordinator like that.
No, but could you have somebody that could go into the internet and look up groups in Santa Clara?
Oh. Yeah,
And,
we can do that.
and do that, yeah.
Yeah,
So
a part
you
of
have
it is,
Portuguese organization, you have the Chinese organizations, and the Indian and the Muslims, the Filipinos. I know that I'm in contact with these people all the time.
oh,
Rob
Mary, if
would
you
be
have,
more, if you,
Yeah.
somebody was to reach out from the city and from planning and saying, this construction is gonna go up and we need public output. If you were to ask me, for instance, call me and say, can you post this to different groups, I would be willing to do that.
and
don't
I
know.
think, Mary, if you had the names or how it, because I think, like the SES Hall, for instance, we're reaching out to them to get their direct, the direct communication going with them and have contacts that you could share. That would be, and this goes for anyone, right? That would be really helpful so that we can just broaden the connection between the city and those specific groups. That would be really, so thank you, Mary, for that offer. And really that's for anyone who has like leads or specific contacts. We can, and as part of this, we'll reach out. That's me asking about like, hey, are there other neighborhood associations? I think I would have been aware as Okra, but if there are other neighborhood associations that might just at least even have a website presence, maybe have an annual meeting, something like that could still be a good contact for us for helping once again.
The other one is Rivermark has
Mhm.
the neighborhood, and it's run by marketing or developer. Because I tried to track down the owner of that neighborhood, but they're starting to offer, whatever offers now, gifts and things like that. Again, they're started back up after the pandemic, but Rivermark has a pretty good neighborhood, and that hopefully will, if we could pull the city together, and reach out, and then I think we need some part-time official designates representatives to help you as the city to get it out, who knows those people.
Those communities, yeah.
Yeah, and because the city you are too busy, you're managing your projects. And there's people available here in the community that could support you in different ways. Semi-retired people.
How about having like a ticker tape?
My sister Connie just offered something. How about having a ticker tape on TV? On
Downtown Santa Clara.
where? On a bulletin board?
Sure, why not?
Why not? On a bulletin board. I'm sure you have bulletin boards available that you could put a ticker tape on.
And
I don't know. I'm sad to say I don't know what tape is.
meeting, juntas.
What?
I think they're talking about scrolling, something that scrolls across the TV screen.
Or on a billboard.
Or a billboard like the 101 billboard that if it's still activated over there. I haven't been on 101 for a while. That could be, because I know the city.
Yeah, actually, you guys make a good point.
City just talked about that.
You guys, right. Actually, some of you, that's actually a great point because the city does have some advertising on some of these billboards, in which they're on like city land. And they get a percentage of that, like 10% of the time or something like that. So that's definitely, if we fed those outlets more,
It should go on all of the billboards as well at the schools.
No, the schools have them.
The schools have billboards outside.
And it says exactly what's going on all week.
right, that might be
School system.
challenging with the school system and their messaging and wanting their messaging. But certainly the ones that the city controls, because they're on city land.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's really
I would like
great
to,
idea for sure. Mark, you have your hand up. Mark?
Yes, yeah, just an additional suggestion. Replacing the notice posting requirement with a mailing requirement to all the addresses within, say, a mile of a project, or if it's a bigger project, perhaps it's, more like 5 miles of a project.
that's a great idea.
And in addition to that, having an option on the city e-notify to be notified of projects by email within a radius, maybe you, I don't know how you do it, but within a radius of my residence, or all the projects in District 5, or all the projects in District 2, or whatever it may be, so that I have an option to sign up for things I don't know about.
Expand it. Don't just limit to districts, because we want to know what's going on.
We're not just, it's like reclaiming our downtown. We're more interested, of course, in reclaiming our downtown in District 5, but we're interested in what's going on in all of our city.
I'm in District 3.
That we're all connected. So I would like more connectivity, but I have a quick question. I had my hand up when you guys were discussing the meetings, and maybe you didn't see my hand up, but
No, sorry, when I'm sharing the screen, it's like a shortcoming of Zoom that you can't see people who aren't panelists. So I didn't see your hand raised. Sorry, Mary.
what I would like, before this topic came up, you were discussing virtual meetings and okay. I would like personally to have like our task force in person, and it's Zoom as well, just like they do with the city council. And I think all of those meetings, those committees should be done that way. And I think maybe you don't get as many people in person, but some people are more comfortable in person. Maybe not as many, maybe you won't get as many, but you will get different people to go in person. A lot of people don't know how to use Zoom, especially if you don't speak English. So if you wanted attendance in a meeting like this to discuss some of this stuff, it should be done in person and Zoom as well. I think all our meetings should be done that way. I feel more comfortable going to an in-person meeting and seeing the eyes of the people I'm talking to. I can get different vibes from the council, or it's different. I don't know how to explain it. Whereas in a Zoom meeting like this, this would be more for people who don't have the time to go to a meeting, an in-person meeting. And I think you need both. I'm very adamant about needing both of the meetings.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Catherine, you also have your hand up. Catherine, can you, gonna try and do something. I don't think I need to unmute you.
I'm sorry, I keep hitting the raise hand button by accident.
It's okay. Oh, okay, you didn't have anything. All right, that's why. Okay, so let me get to this next slide here, which is what we do next. Oh, I need to share the screen again. Okay.
Could I go on the same one?
Let's see here.
Do I
Share
share that?
screen. Okay. All right. Okay. So what are the next steps? So I am going to put materials online. I'm going to attempt to take the feedback received and update our policy to reflect some of the things we talked about today. Going to explore a lot of stuff and then actually put updates to the policy, track changes in our current policy and new additions. And then what I'll do is I'll post that online with a comment period, so you can actually put comments in the document. And then we would move forward really by the spring for the individuals who would be providing information or an approval. So that's our planning commission and our city council in the spring. What I can say is what I don't like about a virtual meeting. I have not figured out how to have a sign-up sheet. If I had people register, I would have been able to collect their emails, but I actually don't have anyone's. I mean, there are people I know here, Donna, Mary, I know you both, Mark, I know you and Adam, Rocio, I have your information, but Catherine, I do not have your contact information. And there are a couple of people who aren't a panelist, but who are participating who I don't have your contact information. So what I would please ask is, if I didn't say your name as someone who I have your contact information, if you could contact me with your email address so that I can notify you of when we have an updated draft document so that you can take a look at it and give more thoughts, and also be notified of when we move forward to a hearing process. Do folks have any questions or other thoughts?
I have a quick question.
No, right, this week's.
Yeah, this is mostly on planning, right?
Yes, yes.
Exactly. I would like to know how,
Sometime at the end of the month.
I hear that you're below
Okay, you're gonna.
personnel by 30%. Is that true?
We staff, I don't have percentage on
I'm sorry,
me.
coming in
You know,
and out.
I don't have the percentage on me now. It's always changing. You know, if we hire someone, like, I haven't updated that number in my head.
How do you,
Can you hear me, Mary?
yes, I can now.
Okay,
How does planning determine how many people to assign, for instance, like to do reclaiming our downtown, and how many people assigned to do the planners to do the bigger projects in the city? How do you determine how many personnel deal with one?
So this isn't really about outreach, but I'm happy to talk about that. I'm happy to share it with you, which is, we don't have multiple people working on things at a time. We do have staff with supervision. So we will have an individual person who will have a supervisor. And when we're working on something, I can tell you, Mary, like the downtown precise plan, you are getting the person with the most experience in long-range planning working on it. It really does depend on how challenging a project is, the level of seniority, as well as their background, their skill set that they get assigned to it. And then you will also have, supervisors who are getting involved and also providing support as well. But we always identify a project manager for a project, like a single person who is going to be responsible at the end of the day to take something across the finish line. We don't have multiple people who are assigned to any individual project, but we do have different levels of seniority, not just seniority, but I would say also experience, and the types of experience that they have that factor into who gets assigned to what they do. I don't know if that helps Mary at all.
Well, I'm concerned with, what I'm concerned with is the fact that some of the things are getting bypassed, and with reclaiming our downtown in particular. I don't know about other projects, but with our project, some of the delays, I get very upset. Like within the last month and a half, there's been 3 glitches in the Reclaiming Our Downtown project. And I'm thinking that you're understaffed. I mean, the reason why I brought this up is because I feel like you're understaffed, and that our project needs more oversight, and we need more oversight so that these glitches don't occur so frequently. And I don't know, I just need assurance that this isn't going to continue. Is it-
Yeah,
like
I
it's
do
gonna
want
matter.
people who are in this meeting, because I know you're here for public outreach, and I see people dropping off. I do see people
Same here.
leaving. So, yeah, and I just want to be respectful of them. So I just want to say thank you to the people who've come to talk to us about public outreach. And once again, if I didn't mention your name, like Catherine, please do email me so I can get you connected to make sure we have a chain of communication on this.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Rena. And I think our question too is the difference between the specific plans and the developments. Because there's a lot of happening right now.
That's
And
another thing.
you
I-
have a
I'm-
Tasman specific plan that you're working on. You've got the one over, and I don't know the name of it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many,
Mhm,
but it's
mhm.
over by the Marriott on,
Perry at Patrick Henry Drive, I think.
Patrick,
Yeah.
you have that one.
Mhm.
So we've got so many specific plans, and then we have developments like we just went through with the one at Civic Center Drive.
Right.
That wasn't even a plan, that was just a development.
Right.
So it's,
Yeah.
What we actually need is a specific plan and a form-based code throughout the city of Santa Clara. We need to have those 2 things.
Right. A specific plan
Within-
can't be
within a
in
building
throughout. Yeah.
project.
A specific plan by its definition can't cover the entire city of Santa Clara. That would be the
But
general
with
plan.
the- with the different
But a form-based code that could be applicable, that's, I'm totally hearing you, Mary. I totally am. That's a big undertaking. So I really think that that's a wonderful thing to say, like, we need. And it is definitely going to be something that would be a big body of work.
the awareness that you said at the beginning, and I don't think Mary was on, was when you spoke about the general plan versus what you're doing now are with code zoning, right?
Right.
And you have that slide. that was very helpful to understand. And the zoning or the general plan is where you go in for future.
Right.
And that's where, yeah, no, that's what. woke
Yeah, and
me
that's
up.
where we really have as a city, the most, what's the word? The most abilities to change something.
That's
Um,
what,
mhm,
yeah, that's what woke me up to what you're
mhm,
doing. So thank you for that awareness.
Yeah.
Mary, yeah, and Mary, I totally hear you. I would definitely not argue with anyone who says like, we need more staff. Like we have a lot of work that we're doing, right? So, I will definitely take that feedback. There's financial implications, and it's not me who has the deep pockets that makes those decisions. But I do want you to know, like, and I mean this in all sincerity, these complex projects that are being worked on, we have staff who are working on them with decades of experience. And I know that the context is the city of Santa Clara, right? But we are in a state of the labor force where it is actually amazing that we have the number of people that we do. It doesn't feel like it, but we actually have some really experienced staff who have a variety of different work experiences, who are here and doing work on all sorts of things. So I know it doesn't feel like that. I do, and I acknowledge that. And I also hear you, and I'll take that back and share that feedback with others. And of course, that's like music to my ears. I'd love our team, I would love to have people not work so hard, I would love that. But it is a financial implication. And,
But we just
definitely
passed Measure H, which should bring some positivity to that area.
Can I offer, and we can take this offline, Rena, and Mary can be there if she wants. And Catherine, I think, is still on the call, and we've got 3 other attendees.
yeah.
That,
No, I mean,
that,
I'm happy to
that's
follow
the
up.
support. No, that's what we could offer you. And I've recently found where you may be able to hire for a stipend to use people just to help out. We don't have the planning background, but I feel like I do because I've watched your planning meetings for 7 years. So, we do learn from that. So there is a possibility of short-term hires as project, not,
Like the
low
ebbs and
level.
flows. Yeah.
like what I was helping you out with today, just to, and, for a stipend, because, we're here and we want to help, and you should be able to tap into that. So, there is a nonprofit that San Jose City used to tap into the expertise of the semi-retired. So
Bring it over here. I'll change.
that might be something your HR department could look into to give you a hand, because you need the support to go forward. How's that?
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion.
I'm not trying to ask for a job, but
No, I mean, I understand. I know just the concept in general of, hourly support. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just someone to watch over something, maybe weekly, or, it doesn't have to be daily, and just, to, keep things active, because, yeah.
So folks, I just wanted to say thank you for your time.
Come again.
I am gonna sign off. But I do want to say just thank you so much for coming and giving input on this. I know that you guys participate and you have a lot of ideas and a lot of areas where we can do things better. So thank you for making yourself available this evening. and staying engaged and continuing to pay attention as we move this forward. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
it was a great talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
This is perfect.